Welcome, and today we're going to be tattooing for beginners. I'm going to do an entire tattoo from beginning to end, taking you with me, explaining everything along the way. Lining, shading, voltage, whatever I can think of, I'm telling you. So, if you're interested in all that, let's go. If you've gotten to this point, I'm going to assume that you know how to make a stencil, how to put the stencil on the body, and that you have the equipment that you need to be tattooing. If you don't, I have a couple videos I'll link somewhere to those various things. Once you put that stencil on, give it as much time as you can afford to dry. If you're in a hurry, then do what you got to do. But if you have the time and you can afford to, give it 15, 20 minutes, hell, half an hour, I don't know. The longer you give it, the better chances of it staying there and visible longer, okay? All right, we're gonna be starting off with a 9-round tight liner. This is a quick look at our stencil today. Got some flowers up here, cute little box, some more leaves, another flower, okay? If you're concerned when setting your needle depth and your power, you can always set your needle depth a little bit closer to the tube at first. You can have your power set a little bit lower. I'd probably just ballpark 7.5 volts. You could start off from there, and if you need to come down because your hand speed varies or you need to go up, 7.5 seems to be a decent place to start. Also with your needles as well, bring them in a little bit in the beginning so you're making sure that you're not blowing lines out and doing all that crazy stuff. And if they're light, then speed your machine up a little bit more, maybe throw your needles out a little bit further. Just get a feel for it. But the first 10 minutes in a tattoo, you're really just getting used to that person's skin, right? Everybody's skin's different. You might do a great tattoo one day and the next day you're like, what the hell? That's part of learning. I'm gonna get my needles set up. I'm gonna start at 8 volts with my needles thrown out this far. I'm gonna start off by taking a little bit of A&D. I just use these little packets right here. We have a little bit of A&D on the skin right now. That's gonna help the needles glide. It's gonna help keep the ink from spooling up or from pooling up. One of the most important things you guys need to think about is stretching the skin. If you can get a 3-point stretch or better, then that's better. So for me, I'm pushing up and down with these 2 fingers and back this way, okay? With this hand, I'm figuring out where I want to be and I'm stretching it out that way. So the skin's nice and tight. And you need a tight stretched skin to get a nice crisp line. Okay, let's say that is our first line, which it is our first line. Instead of wiping it, just take a little bit of your paper towel and dab it. Again, this is your time to make your adjustments after each line. If you make that line and you feel like it wasn't hard enough, make your adjustments. Another important thing, think about where you want to start your line and end your line. If you know those 2 spots, it makes it a little bit easier than just guessing. And if you're really concerned, if you started at a point and end at a point, or start at a spot and can get around to that spot, pull out. Start back in on that spot, come around, pull out. Start back in, come around, pull out. If you're comfortable enough to just run that in one line, do so then. It's also important to note that needle depth, I'm not riding the tube, I'm not shoving it straight in, touching that tube and running a line. If I do that, if I feel the need, I need to do that, then I will adjust things accordingly to run a line while riding the tube. But for the most part, we're floating the needle in the skin. You want to get used to the feeling you get. You'll feel the skin. You'll feel it vibrating. You'll know when that's the sweet spot. Takes a little bit of practice. Take your time. You can be lighter handed in the beginning until you get comfortable. But pay attention to everything that's happening. Breathe. Take your time. Again, it's one line at a time, one point to another point. Consistency will be your best friend. That's why you want to practice on fruit, practice on anything. But when you get to skin, you need to be calm and ready. Just take your time. When you're switching needles, remember that if you have a tighter grouping, it might require less power to have the same result as a bigger needle at a faster speed. So, smaller the needle grouping, think about lowering your voltage. Higher the grouping, think about raising your voltage. Not saying it has to all the time, just think about it. In the beginning, you're going to want to make small movements, okay? And still, even now, if you can get away with it, smaller motions mean more stability. You have more structure from your hand that's being planted here. So if I were to start a line up here, I could run that down, stop, swoop up, run this line down to about there, and I'd have to pull up, okay? Let me show you that real quick. So, I know I'm going to be here. I'm going to run this line right here. You can even practice it, as I'm doing right here. I'm going to run that little bit. And a little bit. Okay, so here we go, just wiped it clean, and that is our outline. That's step one. Quite obviously, you need to outline your tattoo, unless you're doing like a realism piece, but this is tattooing for beginners, so there's an outline. Next, I want to do some black and gray shading in the fox itself, and in the next episode, we'll do the rest of these in color, and I'll show you how to pack color. Next, we're going to go with an 11 soft edge mag long taper. It's essentially a curved mag bug pin with a long taper. You can use any sort of mag you want, but this is a mag, this is a bug pin. It's a little bit nicer for smoother shading. Alright, here I just come in with a really light gray wash, and the goal here is to just put on real thin layers. It's not hard on the skin because it's a really thin layer. I can't tell you how gentle, even though it might look like it's going in harsh, it's not. It's a pretty smooth back and forth motion, and the quicker you move your hand, the less ink's gonna stick essentially. Where you want it to be smoother, move your hand quicker. Where you want it to be a little darker, move your hand slower. And just start light and work your way up and take your time. The key is just don't overwork the skin. If you overwork that area, it can be bad. Just go to another spot for a little while and you can come back to that if need be. You can go much darker, you can go much lighter. The client wanted it to be a bit of a lighter gray wash, a lighter black and gray tattoo. And then here we're just putting a little blue in the eyes, and that'll be all the color for today. Well, there you have it, guys. I believe that's tattooing for beginners. If you're really trying to figure out what to do, I hope that you learned something. And if you have any questions, please let me know, and I can make a future video to address those questions. Nonetheless, I thank you very much for watching this video. Again, if you enjoyed it, hit the like button, please, and share it with your friends. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time.
Peace.